Hello and welcome back to Alpha DevCon 2022. I'm Dave McCormick, your host, and I am joined by Dan Bricklin, our CTO. Dan is going to be going over, oh, there you are right on camera.
Right.
Hi there, Dan.
Yep.
Excellent. Dan is going to be going over our roadmap, and I don't remember, but was there some unfinished stuff that we wanted to cover from last week when it came, Tuesday, some slides maybe
Tuesday.
someone was doing?
Yeah. What was? Oh, yeah, stuff from Selwyn. He's going to show
Yeah,
that.
excellent.
That's part because we'll be talking about roadmap and stuff.
Wonderful.
In it, he'll be showing. This was the well, it's actually a little bit of roadmap and a little bit of what's already there. Where Selwyn's
Okay.
going to talk about the TransForm and attached when you use the Dropbox and stuff like that.
Fantastic. The connected applications part of TransForm.
Yes.
Great.
So let's get
Wonderful. So we'll get started. I'm going to drop off camera and let me go ahead and make you the presenter.
Yeah, okay, you have me in there. Thanks for, and let me show my screen as soon as I get everything I want up here.
Great.
Let's see. Roadmap. And pardon me, I have a cold.
Oh boy.
That's what happens with when you have grandchildren.
That's true. Or if you're in Rhode Island, that's been the running joke this whole thing is that everyone who's in Rhode Island has a bad cold at the moment. So
Yeah, see, show my screen. And which screen do we want to show? The one that shows here. That's this one. Do you see it?
I can see it. Alpha TransForm
Yeah, I
roadmap.
see it too down. Oh no, I'm seeing, okay, I'm seeing PowerPoint and I want to go to meeting, I guess. No, I don't.
You're all set. But you might want to drop off of camera. That way your presentation in the recording will be full screen.
Okay, so I will get rid of, bye everybody.
Bye cam feed.
Oh, I hit the wrong button. I went mute instead. Well,
okay. We're all good. Hey, it's still early somewhere.
So, well, I'm not used to this one, and I think I can do Zoom in my sleep, but I don't do as many of these.
We threw you a curveball with the GoToWebinar.
Yeah, it's depends on how much people use it.
Yeah.
So, okay, and let's shrink this so I can see what's coming up. So, let's go here and go down. So last year, I gave a roadmap. And I said that we were hoping, as part of the roadmap, we would ship the browser-based form filler. And we did. And I talked about an integrated workflow system and enhancements to TPL functionality. So what actually happened over the year? Well, we did ship the browser-based form filler, and it's available now. The integrated workflow system did not come out yet, but enhancements to the TPL functionality have been minor, but we have been making enhancements. There have been filler enhancements of variety, as I went over the other day on Wednesday. There were enhancements to analytics, robustness improvements to many parts of the system, some that you can see and some that you can't see. And there were enhancements to workflow, as Selwyn talked about, and he'll show you also a little bit of it later. And there was further design of workflow. I did a lot of work on workflow, but not much that is actually getting in your hands at this point, but a lot of work was done. I'll show you some of that. So what's my roadmap? What am I willing to say this year? This year, I'm going to talk about the web filler, about advances to the current on-submit system, what we're going to do to evolve that somewhat forward, and we'll be talking about adding account activity tracking and limiting. This gives us variety of options to do stuff. Additional login options that we're going to be able to do thanks to advances in Alpha Anywhere, among other things, and advances in TransForm. I'll talk more about the integrated workflow system, again, to remind you what it is that we're working on. And then, of course, we'll have enhancements to TPL functionality and system robustness. Not necessarily all of this will be completed in the next 12 months, of course. I just want to make sure people remember that. But a lot of it will be, we hope. So let's talk about the web filler. The web filler, as someone likes me to please remind you, is a key part to many uses of workflow. As we talk about workflow, there are times when you're going to want to be able to use the web filler and not mobile filler. But because of that, because some of the people who are going to be part of workflow, where they'll be assigned or dispatched a form or something like that, that those are routed a form that they will be sitting at a desktop or a laptop. But because of the way workflow actually happens, and because of what people would want to do, and because you're on a laptop or desktop, it heightens the need for certain new capabilities. And we'll talk about that. Things that you might want in the mobile, but you want them even more in the browser-based. Just like in the web filler, today's web filler, you can do screen capture. That's not something you want to do as much in the mobile, because basically you'd be capturing the app that you're looking at. And you've always had some way of doing that by going to another one, taking a screen capture by pushing the right buttons on your phone, and then just reading from your album for the photo. But we've made that in cropping and stuff like that. We put that in. So the same thing's going to be happening, that the web filler is an important thing. Browser persistent and online accessible data stores and databases and stuff. Right now, we don't have a simple built-in way to be able to do data lookups and things like that, like we do in the mobile filler. In the mobile filler, you can have a SQLite database, and you can use it for lookup, and people use that a lot for all sorts of things. We don't have that capability simply in the web filler. The web filler now, you basically have to build your own web service of some sort and access that using web requests, send requests and stuff like that. Another thing is the direct link to form instances for editing and viewing. This means that I want to be able to send you an email that you can click on that a link in that email and be right into editing. You may have to log in, but you'll be able to go right to that form and edit it, and then save it off, and then go back to what you were doing without having to bring up the web filler, go find the particular one we're talking about, click on it, and then edit it. So we're looking into how we can do that, and also the various ways of perhaps doing that on a mobile device, which is also possible, and we'll see about that. But more importantly is to be able to do that in the web filler, which is important for workflow. As we've been talking about for some time, scanning, the ability to, instead of having to type in what you would get from a scanning of a barcode, be able to actually scan a barcode or something like that, especially since you can use external webcams and with your device, and also you can hold up things that happen to have it to your webcam on your laptop or desktop. Audio recording, it'd be nice to be able to do audio recording. It's possible to do that. but we have to figure out a way to make sure we fit that in nicely to the way that TransForm does audio. The formats are not exactly the same, and we have to do some work on that. But if there's enough demand for it, audio recording obviously is something. The browsers are able to give us methods to be able to do that, so we should do that. And that brings up capabilities using server-aided processing. There are a lot of things that you may want to do, be it scanning, audio recording, conversion of formats or whatever, and who knows what else, where we may want to provide server-side help to do that. We're already doing that in the web filler. The web filler, when it shows you a thumbnail of a location, does that server side. The server actually calls Google Maps and gets the thumbnail and puts it up, and other things are done that way. So, but there are a lot of other stuff, and of course that brings up the whole ML area brings up issues, things that are potentially there, but we'll have to see which things we want to provide using that. And the data stores, that's another thing using the same type of facility. We already have some of that facility in the web filler, but we want to be able to flesh it out. Then, of course, there's in-place editing and other UI enhancements that lend themselves even more to the web filler than the mobile filler, because there's an external keyboard and a mouse and things like that we don't have on a mobile filler. So let's talk about advances to the current OneSubmit system. One is the user interface. Right now, if you want to define the actions for what happen when you submit a form instance from the filler or modify it on the management console, if you want to be able to define those, you have to use Alpha Anywhere and go to the tools menu and go there and do something, and then link that to your account and push the right buttons and stuff. And if you're on Central, on TransForm Central, all that you see are sort of a list and not much else there, and you have JSON you can edit. Well, we are improving the UI on that. It's in internal testing at this point. There's still some polishing that needs to be done, but we can show you some of that. The other is logging and dashboard. When you're doing these actions, you want to know that they happened, and sometimes you need to track them. And as we as we know that some of the things that need to be done may be done with the post data, where you're actually calling a web service, certain things could fail. They could throw their own errors. They may never complete. There's a lot of things that happen, and also sometimes there are issues that we've had with TransForm, most of which we have been able to solve. But you want to be able to detect that, because the workflow is important. So you want to be able to get more information about what happened with the OneSubmit actions. And so what we've done is we've put into to TransForm the ability to do some very granular logging and the ability to build a dashboard for using that information. That design is based upon not only the current system of how OneSubmit works with just a linear list of actions that are filtered by whether they're done or not, as opposed to a lot of ifs and branching and stuff like that. The design for this logging system was for a much more being able to handle much more complex scenarios, but we can use it today and provide it today for the current system, and we're looking into that, and I can that is in internal development at this point. Well, I can demo some of this because yeah, I can tell you that I'm working on something, but it'd be better to actually show some of it. And then there's the upcoming UI, this first phase, which I'll have Selwyn demonstrate. But let's see. Let me go to, let's see, here we are. Here's a lot of forms. These are just a lot of forms that are in this account. This is one of my testing accounts. What I have is I have a new workflow tab. And every time there is a, let's go to the workflow tab. Let's look at that. And we can look at a date range. And let's just look at this month, okay? And refresh it. So what we have here are all of the workflow instances. In other words, this is all of the times that the onSubmit actions for any of the form types was executed. And you can see down here that one of them, one was done yesterday, and the day before there were a few of them. This was canned image. It was done by me. This one has details that can display, and this was completed, and there were no errors. Now, what does it mean by errors and stuff like that? Let me show you what. So in this, I can sort this. I can say I want to have a form type. We only want to look at the, these are the web filler. These are the ones that I showed you the other day. I can do just general sample, which is one of the things I like to show. I can, if you look at the users, you'll see that I have some funny users, Dan Bricklin and Dan Bricklin. And so they're different users. You can do it. I can look at it by person and stuff like that, the different ones. Let's go to home and let's go to other account settings. Here we go. Here we have, oh no, that's not what I want. I want on submit. Sorry about that. Here we go. So you see I have a post data, save values and user fields, and post data. And this one says fail is 1, don't fail. This is a very simple testing webhook that I have, that it returns either okay or fail. And this says half of the time you should return fail. And this system right now is able to detect that and that look at that value and use it to decide whether the web to use the feedback from the web post. It's very rudimentary right now, but the save value and user fields, it takes the current date time, turns it into a number and saves that in user 1, that field. And finally, at the end, there is a particular webhook that is done with a message that is sent to a Lambda, a S3, a AWS Lambda function that basically lets me, let's see if I can show you that. Let's see, here we go. This shows every time that is called, it posts something here to say that at this time, this form ID for this account with this person, the form was created at this time with that, was with a little message was posted. This is just a simple log on another system that I can use. And this is a way, by being able to put something like this into the into my on submit, I was able to use this, for example, to time how long it took by putting one before and one after. I'm able to know whether it occurred, because we don't know if this is working or not. Is it, I could use an email or an SMS, but maybe those systems aren't working. We've used that with customers to be able to figure out whether whether their submit actions were running or not. So this is a simple way to be able to do that we have now, and I have that in there. Okay, so let's go here and let's look at some other stuff we can do. So there are the workflow instances, and let's look at this one, G-sample. There are details. The details say that this is the workflow instance. It was G-sample. It was created. That's the same. It was submitted at this time. Post data 1 was done. Post data 2, there was an error. This one, the action was done. This one, the action was done. And I can execute manually. I'll show you this in a bit. To retry certain things like this error, I could do it again by pushing it. Actually, let's try it. If I push this, it's performed, and it said that it failed. Oh, well, actually, let's try that again. Now it's okay. That's because, what was it? It was 50% of the time it should fail. It's a random number. 50% of the time it succeeds. And here's the data that was submitted for that form. So this is not necessarily the way you're going to want to see it, but at least to show you this information is available. We could say, let's just look at the things that completed. Well, 34 of the 35 completed, but one of them did not complete. It started, and for some reason, it stopped in the middle. Now, this might be, let's think of a workflow where, well, one could be that our servers crashed. There was a timeout of some sort. Or let's say that we're doing some workflow that takes a while, and we want it to be, set this to 2 days. And if somebody doesn't respond to an email, which is part of the workflow, within the 2 days, you want to say that it hasn't completed. Or if you may want to know that it started, but it's a 3-day thing and you're only 1 day into it, you want to be able to find the things that haven't completed yet, so you can see what's going on and see if they're stuck. So that's what this is for. Which ones had failures? This one had, these are all ones that had failures. For a little while, I was running it with 1 out of 10 times it would not fail. And here I get to say, well, what are the different actions? There were 35 of these, there were 23 of these, because this was a new one that I added, these many successes, all these failures. The last time there was a success, the last time there was a failure. So that's a useful thing. And finally, an execution log. This is every single action that was executed, and you get to see there was a this and this, a this and a this, and you get to see them, and you have the details available. And you may say that I only want to see this for the form type of language test. I only want to see this, for there are any submitteds? They're just the ones that were submitteds and stuff like that. Which user, which action? I only care about the post data 5, those new ones, okay? So this is the ability to do all this stuff and for different date ranges is something that we're looking at providing. And when we take questions at the end, then maybe we can talk a little bit about what you want with this, or maybe, that if we have extra time at the end, feedback on this may be helpful. Let's see. Was there anything else on this that we can demonstrate this. Let's actually, what I'll do is let me go to the so this is workflow instances, and let me go to here, and let me add a blank form, and let's make let's do a G. I always like this one, right? The general sample. And this is the first time, nah. And where was I born? I was born in Pennsylvania. So that should be good enough for this. That's good enough for that. And let's go. So that form is no error and it has errors. Okay, let's send it to the server. And saving the changes. It did it. Let's go back over here. Let's see. Let's do a refresh. Look at that. It happened. It was submitted. Let's go over here. And let's see, the last one here is the 20th. Let's do a refresh and go down there. And here it is. And you have the information on it with the details. And there was an error, and we could try that. And you can see it. This is a no, and no in Pennsylvania. So that's, I think that's enough of that. Selwyn, would you like to demonstrate your stuff? How do we do that, Dave? Then we'll come back to me after that.
Okay.
Unless you think there's something that I left out.
No, basically. So what would you like me to show, Dan?
Oh, so I'd like you to show the, well, first the thing that you didn't show last time, which was the, and use the new UI for it, is the, or maybe you did show some in the afternoon, the setting up a connected application.
Okay.
And you wanted to show how that is. And then there's also, you want to show the new UI for on submit for authoring those actions in the web browser in Central.
Right. Okay.
I've just made you the presenter, so you can go ahead and share your screen. There it is.
Okay. So basically what Dan was saying is that one of the new options in TransForm is to create something called a so-called connected application. And the reason that you want to do connected applications is that you need to give TransForm permission to talk to your Dropbox account or your Google Drive account or your S3 bucket. So, and several of the on-submit actions require you to specify which connected application you're going to be talking to. So, for example, one of the on-submit actions is to save a version of the form in either PDF or HTML or JSON format on a storage location. And when you go to the builder for that action, you need to specify what your connected application is. So if I want to go and create a new connected application, I can go here and you can see that we have a little window there that comes out. I'm going to give this a name. I'll call this name, say, DevCon. And then I'll say what I'm trying to connect to. So I'll just go here and say Google Drive, for example. And then we're going to be adding more connected applications like Salesforce, etc. But those aren't done yet. So I'll go here. And now I'm going to say I'm going to authorize this connection. So if I go ahead here and press this button, you'll see what happens is we get the Google authentication. This is an OAuth flow. So I'm going to give permission to TransForm over here to talk to my Google account, and there we go. So now I've basically created a new account a new connected application called DevCon, which can then talk to my Google Drive application. But now let's say that I want to basically every time I create a new instance of a particular form, I'd like to save it in Dropbox. So let me go right now to the OnSubmit builder, which currently is done in Alpha Anywhere. But as Dan mentioned, we're working on a user interface so that you can actually define the OnSubmit events in TransForm itself, in TransForm Central, and I'll show the early prototypes of that. But I'm going to start out here, and I'm going to go the old-fashioned way of defining an OnSubmit event by going into Alpha Anywhere, and then more TransForm utilities, and the builder for the OnSubmit event. And then I'm going to go and fetch the current definition from TransForm and load it over here. And I can see that one of my actions is to save a form in storage for mileage 1. So let's go and edit that action. So you can see basically this action applies to mileage 1. Then we're going to create a PDF version of the form in Dropbox, and this is going to be the name of the connected application that we're going to use. So this is the, in effect, like it's my connection string that I've used to authorize TransForm to talk to Dropbox. And then I'm going to put it in a folder in my Dropbox account called CONTF3. I have no idea why I chose that particular folder, but as I did. And this is going to be the format of the file name that is created in Dropbox. It's going to have TransForm, it's going to have the form name, and then it's going to have the year, the date, and the day of the submission. So now that we've defined this OnSubmit event, I'm going to just go here and say cancel. And then I'm going to go back to TransForm and actually create a new instance of the mileage 1 form. So here's my mileage 1 form in the management console. I'll go here and say add new. So I'll add 1. And let's just go here and edit it. So I'll go here and I'll call this DevCon demo. I'll save it. And now I'll submit it, and then I'm going to go over to my Dropbox account and look in and see if I can see that form over there. So right now the OnSubmit events are all happening synchronously, but we're adding code so that the OnSubmit events happen asynchronously. So the after you hit the submit button, the confirmation that the work has been done, the spinner, which is you're waiting for the spinner to go down, will go down much more quickly because the actual OnSubmit event will be done in the background. So now I'm going to go back over to my Dropbox account over there, and you can see that there's my new form that just got submitted. So if I double click on that, you can see there's DevCon demo. So I now have a hard copy of my submitted form in my Dropbox folder over here. So the ability to save hard copies of your submitted forms in a storage location is pretty nice. And not only can you save hard copies of your forms, but you can also save hard copies of the reports that you generate in a TransForm OnSubmit event. But as Dan mentioned, you saw that I had to go into Alpha Anywhere to actually build the event and then push the JSON for the event back into TransForm Central. So you can see, I think over here, this is the internal beta version of TransForm that we're using. And so there's my OnSubmit actions, and you can see here's my builder. And I can define this action. I can define these actions completely within TransForm. So this on the right-hand side here is a property sheet that is built in Alpha Anywhere using a JSON form, and I'll be talking about JSON forms during my roadmap talk. So there's the save form to storage. Here's my basically definition of a report action. There's a send mail action. If I want to change the order in which these actions get done, I can just go and drag and drop them into a different order. that didn't drop successfully. There we go. And then I can go and add new actions. So this is still a work in progress, but it basically demonstrates how we're moving towards being able to define complex actions completely within TransForm. And this particular workflow here is just really a sequence of on-submit actions. When we're talking about TransForm workflow, what Dan is really talking about is actions that are connected with logic. So basically you can have one action move to the next action if a certain condition is true, and then wait for a certain amount of time, and then send out a form, etc. So so that's basically the work that we're doing in the on-submit event builder in TransForm Central, and that's the work that we've done in new on-submit events that are currently available in TransForm. So Dan, was there anything else that you would like me to cover?
No, I think that's good enough. I'm trying to think, what else have you been working on that we can show? But I think that was there are other stuff you've already talked about, and I don't think I need to do a demo at this point.
Excellent.
If we have a lot of extra time, feel free. Okay, so I should go share again, right?
Thanks, Sal. Yeah, thank you very much, Selwyn. Yeah, Dan, I'm passing you back control as presenter.
Let's go back here, and I want to go to monitor one. Is that it? You see my demo, the demo slide?
I do. Yep.
And we did logging and dashboard capabilities and the upcoming UI first phase. So let's, I want to talk a little bit about activity tracking and limiting. This is work that I've been working on, and that we're going to be doing a lot more with, is that what we want to be able to do is to keep track of the number for each account, the number of form types that have been that are active, the number of form instances that have been created, the number of form instances that are still there. I mean the submissions, how many submissions are made, how many bytes of media storage, the number of users. There's a variety of account activities that we want to be able to track, which we can use for a variety of purposes. And of course, we want to make that available to administrators. This, already right now, users, the number of authorized users is something that we're already tracking and making available to administrators, but it's not as straightforward, and it doesn't do all the things that you may want to be able to do. So I'm not going to talk much more about this, except that this is there's going to be a lot of work done in this area that will allow us to also be able to limit you to a certain number of these. If we want to, just like we are with users now, we might be able to do that with other things, and we'll figure out how that may relate to different options for us with our the different accounts. I don't know, Dave, if you want to say anything else about this.
Sure. Yeah. So, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, whenever I bring up TransForm, a lot of the diehard Alpha Anywhere people, and there's a lot of them here on this call, say, oh yeah, TransForm, whatever. Doesn't really work for me. The way that it's priced is kind of the biggest issue, in that it's a per user per month model. Even though it does a bunch of things, it's not really good for the way that I do business, or if I scale, it's going to get expensive and all that. And so what we offer now is really just we sell it by the user, and the users can put in as many forms as they want. They can store as much data as they want. There really are sort of no limits, which is why we make it the price that it is. But in many cases, we realize TransForm would be a great thing to integrate into your Alpha Anywhere applications, or it actually might be a good standalone application if you're dealing with lots and lots of people who maybe just occasionally use the system. So what we're coming up with, and this will be announced really after DevCon, is a way that it'll make TransForm much more appealing business-wise for your use case. And I think you'll find that TransForm can save you a whole bunch of time when you're building out applications for your clients. So a lot of this activity here is that Dan's talking about is just sort of undercover work, but the real advantage to you is that we'll be able to offer something very flexible. I think that you're going to be happy with. So that's it. Look for an announcement maybe a week or two after DevCon. We're still
we'll see.
Yeah. Stuff. Yep.
Okay, so that's something that that we're working on, and related to that to some extent, but in addition, as you've heard from Selwyn and others, there's been advances, and I think Terry and others, there have been advances in terms of being able to, with Alpha Anywhere, connect, do authentication through other than our own authentication system. And we're looking to provide additional login options for TransForm, including login with Google and Apple, and we'll see what else. Better connection to corporate authentication. We already have that, but in a beginnings availability of a way to do that, but maybe additional ways of doing corporate authentication using corporate authentication. And another one that comes up because of the limiting stuff we talked about and other stuff that Dave was talking about is perhaps the ability for anonymous users who can that can submit a form, but not they're not the same as being able to it's more for something like doing surveys and things like that, where you may have thousands and thousands of users, but they're all only going to use it once or once in a while or something like that. And all you care about is what they fill out, perhaps because they've done a scan of a barcode, which is able to make unique the particular upload that you're doing, etc. There are all sorts of applications this could bring up. So we have to look in terms of that, because you don't necessarily want to have them go through the whole rigmarole of becoming a TransForm user and you keeping track of it, and etc. And especially since we charge per user, that doesn't fit. As we talked about last year, we're working towards an integrated workflow system. This is for TransForm and for Alpha Anywhere. It's not just like you'll see with a lot of the other things we've talked about, like the login and the connected applications and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff that we do for TransForm is also available to Alpha Anywhere and vice versa. Because TransForm is built on Alpha Anywhere, and we often use Alpha Anywhere to do the things for TransForm, so we hope to make it also available to Alpha Anywhere. Sometimes TransForm gets it first, and then a more refined version ends up in Alpha Anywhere, but that's what we're looking at. And you see now with workflow, we have a simple workflow in Alpha Anywhere already, but we'd like to have, in TransForm anyway, and we'd like to have something in Alpha Anywhere perhaps. So what do we mean by workflow? Workflow, to remind you, is a system that based on a predetermined set of rules, responds to specified triggers, and initiates a series of tasks or actions in sequence. That's what we currently have. It's like the rules are the list of actions that you saw Selwyn editing. The trigger in this case is submitting a form instance, and then the tasks are to actually execute those actions. A trip through the set of rules is called a workflow instance, and I showed you a tracking of these tasks within the workflow instance. We could actually follow workflow instances in that tab that I showed you, and you can have multiple workflow instances following the same workflow rules, sometimes even simultaneously, and some of that was, I think, in the system that I showed you, you'll see that the same instance, when the same form instance went through multiple times and stuff like that. and a workflow may have data associated with it, such as the TransForm form instance itself, which is the way the current one works, is it takes the form data as submitted and then uses that for each of the actions. But there may be some other database index value. There's other information that can be passed in the current system. There is no shared data available yet to your actions to pass from one action to another, but we want to be able to do that, and we have a pretty hefty design about that whole thing. So there's status. You want to be able to have, but you also want you want to know where that instant currently is in the set of rules. You want to know that, and you want to know that a task is started but not completed yet. And you saw we're using some of that logging about that information in the system that I showed you. And just to remind you what we are talking about here, a form instance is submitted to purchase. We have two things: is it a special vendor, and is the amount greater than 100? If it's a special vendor, these are being done simultaneously, then you have to go to legal for approval. And if it's not then you can go here, but this is waiting for both of the inputs. Is the amount greater than 100 bucks? If it's not, this is all ready, and you can go down here, send an email to purchasing. But if it's greater than 100, then the manager has to approve it. Is it approved? Yes. Well, this is probably an email or an SMS. They may have to fill out, check something on the form, and then resubmit. And if it's true, then this is why I'm talking about having URLs and stuff and being able to work in the laptop, and in both cases using the web filler. And if it's yes, then go down here, send it to purchasing. Otherwise, send an email to the requester to say, hey, it wasn't approved. Send an email to requester and to the manager to say, hey, legal says no. So that's an example of what we want to be able to build things, and we want it to look kind of like this. And what we've actually done is we have built software for rendering this, drawing the lines, drawing the ends and the shapes and stuff like that. We have software for this that we've built, and it's not complete, but it's pretty powerful to be able to drag things around and be able to have the lines go where they're supposed to. So we actually started working on some of this, so we could have used that for the stuff that Selwyn just showed you, but that's a lot of white space for something that's not that interesting in terms of what it does. So we decided to use a much more compact visualization, but we could have been used in a visualization like this for that. We have renderers that are able to do that. So we've done work on that type of stuff, and we've done work, as you see, on keeping track of the data and building an engine to be able to do it. But there's a lot more work to be done. In addition, as Selwyn will talk about later this afternoon, there's the use of various queues, because how is this going to be where is this going to be executed? Which things are executed by other servers, processes on servers external to our system, internal to our system, and various queues that you want to be able to follow. And where there's new features that we're talking about in Alpha Anywhere, and to be able to, and in Alpha Cloud, to be able to support this and be able to support it, support use of it in Alpha Anywhere for various stuff. Enhancements to TPL functionality and system robustness. We've been doing this continually. We're going to continue to respond to the user and the market needs and observations from actual field use. And we're talking about feedback from you. You people are going to be giving us feedback, real world use. We're going to see some that we figure out by watching your use, and you tell us how it's working and but also what you complain about and what you find helpful and what you don't. As we help build our services help build some of your applications. We will find out different needs, and that has been driving enhancements internally to TransForm, and also various things that happen actually in the field that we may or may not have foreseen, to be able to make the product, the system more robust in terms of that. So that's been 50 minutes. I actually have lots more time scheduled. We can end early, or we can take some Q&A. So Dave, you drive now. And I'd like feedback. Feedback would be helpful.
Sounds good. Feedback would be helpful. And so one person asked, but it looks like you've already answered this question, is, are we going to be allowing for, SAML or some other type of sign-in options besides simply what's built into TransForm? And
the answer is to Selwyn.
The answer is yes, you can.
And, Selwyn, the answer is yes?
Yes.
Okay, we're definitely looking at it, and we already have some facilities in the UI to help do some of this.
So in particular, someone points out that, for any new projects, two-factor authentication is becoming mandatory. And it seems like we'd be able to get that functionality by using something like Google Sign-In anyway. Does that make sense?
Right, but basically, like as Terry demonstrated yesterday, we added to Alpha Anywhere this federated authentication. And that, so we're going to basically use that work in TransForm as well. So we can use any identity provider. And when you use an external identity provider, you can turn on or off two-factor authentication.
Excellent. The other thing is that, in terms of limiting stuff, people were pointing out that, there are times where they just need to occasionally use Alpha Transform. So it'd be nice to have some flexibility going forward. There has been some more work done in terms of the okay, actually here's a couple of questions here, but there has been more work done in terms of the UI than what was actually demonstrated today. Although you saw some of the new, what we call the property sheets, in which you can move stuff around, there is more work in terms of how workflows are going to be drawn out and stuff like that. So if it's capable of, I don't know if anyone can join us here to maybe do a demonstration of that. I've reached out sort of very last minute to Scott Allen here to see if maybe even can help us out on that. And if they show up, we'll show it to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question we've got here is, can you just sort of explain just top level, what problems do TransForm solve that Alpha Anywhere doesn't solve, right? And, is it different in terms of learning curve? And when would you decide to go with, say, a TransForm versus an Alpha Anywhere? So obviously, I'll let either one of you take a stab at that, or I can.
Yeah, you can too, but I can bring up one thing is that TransForm is already built. And what you need can be done by TransForm, you can start right away, right now, and you can have an application up in minutes, few minutes. And that is what we're hearing from people. You can talk to Glenn, who spoke the other day about how he uses TransForm. He can mock up something, a working form, to be able to show potential customers what, and actually try it in minutes using Quick Start and things like that, Quick Start text. And then with TPL, you can make it very powerful, where if you actually had to build this entire application with login, with Alpha Anywhere, it would take much, much longer. Now, the Alpha Anywhere version has a lot more headroom. You can go a lot further, but it can take you a long time to build it. If you want to build the dashboard yourself, that's going to take time. So basically, you have to look at it. That's where TransForm came from. It came from the fact that people were building the same thing over and over again. They wanted to have a table-driven form system that you can change the form by changing a database or something, and that would change the form, and it would change the form in the field and be able to build, and you need to be able to take pictures, and doing that took, even if we gave you sample code, took a long time.
Yeah.
Faster building it in Alpha Anywhere than building it in most any other system, but why not? We should provide that as an application. Plus, means that since we're actually using this and we're supporting this, we're eating our own dog food, so to speak. Not only are we building Alpha Anywhere, we're using Alpha Anywhere and support using it to support all sorts of users. So we're in the same shoes as a lot of our customers, and that's better for Alpha and for Alpha Anywhere and our
That's
customers.
right. What we found is, as people, we have clients and partners come to us from lots of different ways, especially a lot of online search engine traffic and stuff, and they show up and they've got a problem they want to solve. And almost always that problem, if it's mobile based, involves collecting data on a mobile device. And we've really kind of figured out what are the key things that people really want to do with that, and pre-built it into an application. The upshot of that is when someone does come to us, the first thing we usually ask them for is for a form. Can you show us a paper form that you're using in your business today that you would like to have digitized? And almost always, either the same day or if not the next day, we come back to them and say, great, open up this program called Alpha TransForm. There's your form. It's all done. And it's not just done, but it's smart. It has drop-down lists. It's got limits and high and low values and things like that. And if it needs signatures, it's got signatures. And you can add photos, things that you couldn't do to paper forms. And at that point, the conversation stops from, I wonder if Alpha is still the technology provider, to, hey, Alpha, how quickly do you think we can get our project done? Because it really is, you see it working and it's amazing. So sometimes people will use that as a sales tool and they'll end up not using TransForm. They'll say, in the end, I decided to go with Alpha Anywhere because, for example, it needed to be branded by my client. They don't like using third-party software. They have some special thing that they want to have done that maybe TransForm can't do. Functionally, there's almost nothing TransForm can't do. And as you'll see Greg Bowling's presentation later today, which I still don't know what it is, but the last two that he did have always just been like, oh my gosh, I had no idea you could do that in TransForm. And the thing is, because it's really a constrained system, you can't do as much with it in Alpha Anywhere, and in a way that's actually kind of the beauty of it. So the learning curve is super short. The last time I've done user testing on it, which was about a year ago, maybe 6 months ago, on average, a normal person, not a programmer or anyone as technical as we have here in the room, I choose, just people who know how to use Word and operate the internet, can build a form, get it on their phone, start using it, and go and analyze the data in about 15 minutes. So there's no comparison between that and any low-code product or anything like that.
Yeah, and it has incredible headroom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because we have the TPL system and stuff like that, and that we have all these actions and submits and whatever. And now with the new stuff that you can just, have a form and have it go up to Dropbox or S3 or whatever. That's just, it's so straightforward for so much. You can get so much done so quickly.
Cool. Now I have Scott Allen who has joined us here on the panel. Scott, are you there? Looks like you're muted.
I am. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, good. And Scott said, hey, they're showing off cool stuff, but there's so much more cool stuff that they could be showing off. And he's like, it's killing me. And I was like, Scott, do you have anything you could show? And
well, I really appreciate it. It's really cool to see the near future of the software and where things are going. But a lot of my initiatives.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt for a second. Just to clarify, Scott is on our development team. You've been to probably his UI UX presentation yesterday. And so he and Evan spent a lot of time taking TransForm for where it is now and bringing it up to the future. So it'll be a really slick, modern, easier to use app than it is today. So, the stuff that you see from Dan and from Selwyn, a lot of underlying functionality. But for the roadmap, I forgot, the look is pretty darn important too. So, so let me show you. So if I can hand it back over to you. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure, no, that's all right. No, it's really cool to see what all this stuff that's going on and, expanded functionality, improved robustness of the product. All of that stuff is absolutely essential. And I've been trying to take a more long-reaching future approach to the software. Like, what can we do long-term to make it more user-friendly, to expand its capabilities and its efficiencies through its UI. And so there's a lot of work that I've been doing, kind of, I guess you could say, sort of trying to push that envelope. And then what we do is, we have meetings where we come back in and we start integrating some of that stuff. And the work that you saw that Even and Selwyn have been doing to change the home tab there, getting things such as the on-submit builder redesigned, really started through this sort of process. And there's been a lot of push and pull on other things like workflow, and that has, I think, all been very healthy for the overall design initiatives. And so some of the things that I've been doing, I can show. I don't know if you can see any of this.
Yeah.
So what we have here is sort of a re-envisioning of the product toward some place that we'd like to consider trying to push things. That it shows you've got a bit of a drag and drop interface. I've got to move my controls here so I can actually change things. So this is with the panel expanded for choices, where you can drag into the vertical timeline of events, sort of what's going on in the preview. Conceivably, you could even have dragging to the visual preview and have it work. But the prop grid would go on the right in this situation, kind of a commands line where we have all of our commands set up, and in the middle, and then the preview on the left. Now, all that could be rearranged, but really, what this does is it tightens up. If you've seen some of the other demos, you notice, like, well, there are a lot of tabs that were kind of growing on up there, and it was kind of like getting to be a few too many tabs. So now, kind of we visualized that we need to maybe tighten that up a little bit into some a few narrower choices, and then move some of the things that are currently on the home tab into a settings area. And so this is just a general tightening up of some things visually, and a more a potentially more efficient interface to be able to do all of these things this way. We have a dark version that we've designed that you can see kind of similar. And then here's an example of the workflow as a home tab. So currently, right now, we have a home tab, which is really a lot of settings. And we want to move those to a settings area and have the home, when you go start on the home tab, that you'd actually be starting in the dashboard, so that you could see what was going on with your accounts, kind of get your welcome message. Hello, this is how many forms you have and instances. These are the number of accounts that you're operating. Here's some basic information that is available to you to start your day, with what you're going to do in TransForm. And then you can start opening up different projects and working on them from here. So this is kind of a direction that we're hoping to move it forward in. And, it's like I said, it's sort of a bit of a push and pull of like where the software is right now, what it can do and how it gets it done, versus, where as a UI designer and a UI developer with Even, where we're kind of like see where things could go, and how we'd like to kind of try to influence in that way. And these are some of the things that we're bringing to the table.
That is terrific. Thank you very much, Scott. It doesn't look like we have any more questions, so we will end this TransForm roadmap session. Again, if you do have questions, you can always send them to guides@alphasoftware.com. And for TransForm, there's actually a special address, tfservice@alphasoftware.com. But either way, that'll get to us. Coming up in 10 minutes, coming up at 11:45, which is in 41 minutes, is the Alpha Anywhere roadmap. And I know a lot of you want to stick around to see that. So until then, thank you very much, everyone, for presenting. Thanks for showing up, and I'll see you at the next session. Bye-bye.
All right.